And we are live. G'day, guys. Thanks for tuning in. As always, you probably know the drill by now. Let me fire this all up. We're going to talk Origin 1. That's the most important punting event coming up. So Origin 1, Wednesday night, I'm going to give my preview. And I'm also going to talk about the 4 games of footy from NRL round 13. But just give me an extra 90 seconds, guys, to set it up. Please let me know if you can hear me, see it all right. Comment what your favourite favourite moment of the round or takeaway was from round 13, or any thoughts you got for Origin. Okay, I think I got that sorted. Thanks for tuning in, guys. So we saw how important those Panthers players are based on how Penrith went on the weekend. So if anything, that's probably a good sign for New South Wales. You haven't missed anything so far, Philip. We'll get fired up at the 2-minute mark of this video. G'day, Memaberries. Hey, Kieran. Welcome to the Tripod, where we break down the NRL every match, every week from a punting perspective. And we also break down Origin, of course, and Origin 1 is upon us this week. So I'm going to start there. Even though this is the live recap, I'm going to talk about the 4 matches that we saw in round 13, but I'm actually going to start with Origin 1 preview, and that is because I think that's what's on the forefront of most people's minds. And if anybody discovers this pod in the next 3 or 4 days, you probably want to listen to the Origin preview. I'm going to aim to go about 15 minutes on Origin, all my thoughts on it, and share a bet. And then if you want to hear my quick takeaways from the 4 matches that we've just watched this weekend, I'll also include them afterwards as well. So let's start there. So Origin 1 being on Wednesday night, I am not going to do the pod Wednesday night. So I don't think people are going to be too fired up for a round 14 preview a couple of hours before Origin kicks off. And it's so many unknowns because a lot of the players are all eligible to back up for the upcoming round of NRL, and you never know who's going to. You never know like who might get injured or anything like that. So what I do is I'm going to push the round 14 preview pod 24 hours. Okay, so we've got no Thursday night footy this coming week. So if you're wondering, Wednesday night I'm not going to be around. I'm going to be sinking a few brews, getting ready for Origin 1, and then I'll be there normal schedule Thursday night, 5:45 p.m. To preview round 14. Hopefully by then a bit more information would be clear, and including like the injury toll and everything else. And I'll do my best to share some good tips for round 14. But let's start with Origin. Now, one thing I will say about Origin, we've done the pod for 7 years, this being the 7th year. We've been extremely successful with our Origin tips. We've made profit every single series. We've had some series where we've swept the series. And we are Queenslanders. I say we because Alex did the pod with me, if you can see Alex there. He did the pod with me for 6 years now. I'm on my own, right? But we're proud Queenslanders, and we've been put in a hard spot because, you know, when you're punting, you can't punt with your heart, obviously. You have to try and be objective. And I remember the first time we tipped New South Wales, I think it was game 1, 2017, and we said, sorry, boys, but can't see anything but New South Wales winning here. And they were actually underdogs in game 1 at Suncorp and flogged Queensland. And we actually copped it, and you guys have ruined Origin. How can you go against your state? Oh, that's so un-Australian and all this. But that just shows that we do tip against our state if we think that that's where the value is. And I've actually got an interesting stat to tell you guys. We've never tipped New South Wales with the line in the last 6 years and been wrong. So when we've gone against our state, we've been right every time, unfortunately. There's been other games where we've been on Queensland and right, and there have been a couple of times where we've been on Queensland with the line and been wrong. So take that all for what it's worth. I always admit Origin is hard to navigate for me because I have to try and split what I think will happen versus what I want to happen. Now, first thing I'm going to talk about is kind of the style of the match, the way I think it's going to be played. And first thing I'm going to say is throw out all the old stats, because I think if you look at any old stats, and I'm talking about kind of how many points you think are going to be scored and the old style of these Origin matches being arm wrestles and being low scoring, I don't think it applies. We are in an era with the highest historical scoring the NRL has ever seen. We have the 6 again rules, which, yes, we had last year, but that was the first Origin series with those new rules. So we've got it again. You know that refs swallow their whistle in Origin, but when you got the 6 again rule, they're technically not blowing the whistle. I don't think they're as scared to kind of like wave on 6 again. New rules again this season, more time the ball is spent in play. And of course, the high tackle rules. So that has a double effect, I believe. Obviously, I think we've got a greater chance than usual of players being sent to the bin, or even, God forbid, a player sent off. And of course, we understand that players in the bin and less players on the field opens the game up and leads to more scoring opportunities and more points. I also think the players are somewhat second guessing their contact. They're trying to aim a little bit lower, but then sometimes that you're not dominating the tackle. There's more offloads, and it may even lead to more missed tackles, I believe, with the players are just like, if they get stepped on the inside, they're a little bit more hesitant to kind of, let's say, swing an arm out to try and reach a guy and grab him at all costs, because they're worried. You reach out and you make contact like neck or higher, you could really hurt your team with 10 in the bin. So I think these rules massively impact, higher scoring games. Now, of course, I think the way that these two teams have been picked, and you can see there I've got the backlines showing for the squads, and I'll go through the squads in each unit as I see them and where I see an edge. But you can clearly see like the coaches pick the best attacking players and the players that suit this style of footy, and they pick the players from the teams that are particularly successful in 2021 as much as they can. Certainly New South Wales, with a deeper pool, they can afford to pick players from teams that are like all in form, whereas Queensland, a little bit thinner pool. But Queensland are defending the shield, and like, it's interesting this year, I think New South Wales has 2 or 3 guys on debut, whereas Queensland actually has no players on debut because they blooded so many last year. And of course, we had the Origin quite recently. We had the Origin in like November. All right, if we look at the match, I completely agree that New South Wales should be the favourites. Right now, they're a 4.5 point favourite, and I'm not going to disagree with that. And I think that it's likely that they will probably dictate terms somewhat. You look at the way this team that Freddie's picked there, with picking like a guy like Jake Trbojevic at prop, where he can ball play a little bit. You got Yo, you got Murray, who's usually a lock on an edge. You got Jack Whiten on the bench, but he could be thrown into the middle. The Panthers halves, Cookie in there, and a very dynamic back five with 3 of these guys in the back five are club fullbacks who can ball play as well. So we know the style of game that Freddie wants. He wants an open game, and it's usually a pretty fast track up there in Townsville. And I think that's what New South Wales are going to get. If I look at the coaching advantage, I really think that, a couple of things. Wayne Bennett's had a marvelous career, but of all the things Wayne Bennett has done in his career, winning that series with the Queensland team that he had available to him, which, as we know, was called the worst Origin team in history, that's got to be one of Wayne Bennett's greatest ever achievements. I thought that was magnificent, the job that he did with the squad last year. And I think Bennett was just amazing at embracing that underdog tag. He went into the camp so calm and just took the pressure off his team and freed them up to just play to the best of their ability. Now, this year, yes, Queensland are still the underdogs, but I don't think they can kind of play that up this time. They hold the shield. The first 2 games are in Queensland. It's a very tough task for Greeny, because I think all the pressure is on the Maroons going into game 1. And I think Freddie has the advantage here. You've got Freddie, who's now coaching his 4th Origin series, whereas Greeny's on, his coaching debut in this arena. And the reason that Freddie has an advantage is Freddie has coached Origin and also coached with the new rules. You look at Bennett last year. Bennett had coached South Sydney all through the year. He had kind of learnt how the new rules were playing out on the field. And I think that gave him an edge taking into Origin camp that Freddie didn't have. So I have to give coaching edge now to the Blues. And the biggest edge of all that I also give to the Blues, and why I've still got the outside backs on the screen there now, is the game breakers in their spine. I can't look past Tedesco, Turbo, Latrell what he's capable of, although Latrell's a wild card because he's been a bit quiet since he's been back from suspension. But Addo Carr, and then you go a little bit further as I reveal a bit more of the team list. Obviously, the halves there, the Panthers halves, and Damien Cook, who, again, you can argue has his form been fantastic. Not necessarily, but he's earned his jersey there, and he's such a scary player in the new rules. And Nathan Cleary, I believe, is the most influential player in the game. So it's not like Queensland doesn't have any stars, but it's clear to me that there's a big advantage in the outside backs and spine to New South Wales. Let me know if you guys agree with that. When I look at the forward packs, I'm not going to say New South Wales has a stronger forward pack. I think similar to last year. So I've got Christian Welch and Saifiti there at the top of the screen, but then I'll just scroll down a bit more. You might not see them all. I think last year it was a similar thing where everyone talked about how bad Queensland was. The truth of the matter was that the forward pack well and truly stood up and matched New South Wales and allowed Queensland an opportunity to be in the game in game 1 and game 3. And that was all they needed. And then it was Queensland stars. And we know that Munster was, man of the series, and a few other guys in key positions had awesome matches in game 1 and 3 and got him over the line. And once again, I think with the emergence of Christian Welch, I think if you would have picked a Kangaroos team last year, he would have been in it. Tino probably would have had a case as well. It's his second Origin series. Kaufusi and of course, Fafita didn't play Origin last year. So that's massive getting him in. I've got to mention Josh Papali'i's not in this team, so that's a big loss. But you somewhat negate that getting back Fafita. Of course, the New South Wales forward pack is strong and players that are in form. That's always the case. They've got more players to pick from, and they always have strong forward depth. But I would say I don't see any advantage there. And I do give Queensland a chance on Wednesday night because I do think that this Queensland forward pack can give everything to New South Wales that they can handle. If we move to the bench, I have to, again, give the edge to New South Wales. That when you got the reigning Dally M as your utility there, Payne Haas would be starting if he was a Queenslander. He'd be starting for Queensland. Whereas a guy like Joe Offengawa, you could probably pick a B team for New South Wales and maybe even a C team. And arguably a guy like Offengawa wouldn't make that team, or even Jaden Sewer. So you can see that that's where the depth shows itself as well. What other edges? Of course, goal kicking, you have to give the edge to New South Wales. Now, on that point of goal kicking, I think it is funny and worth bringing up again because when I try and preview this match, of course, I think about how the series played out last year. Game 1 was 3 tries each. Daly Cherry Evans was kicking for Queensland, kicked 3 of 3. Cleary, who's obviously a way better kicker than Cherry, was 1 of 3. Now, Queensland won by 4 points thanks to the difference in those conversions. And I remember Cherry slotting one from the sideline. It's not like they were all easy. Not only that, do you remember late in game 1, which really was the series looking back, Queensland was giving away penalty after penalty, eventually got a sin bin. If it had only been a 2-point game or, if the scores had been level, well, that's game over. New South Wales wins. So Queensland clearly did not have the goal kicking edge in game 1 last year, but still won thanks to goal kicking partly. So I'm going to obviously mention that it's an edge because Cleary's a better kicker than Valentine Holmes, who I presume will kick for Queensland. But it doesn't always play out that way, but it's still something to mention. Also, home advantage. Now, I don't think home advantage. We know that Queensland's been moved. This match has been moved to Queensland and it's going to be played in Townsville, which I think is really exciting for the region. I don't think the home advantage will be as big as some others might think. Now, of course, it's going to be awesome for the Queenslanders to run out in front of a very partisan crowd and very pumped up crowd. But I really feel that the Blues are going to relish playing in enemy territory and have like a siege mentality with a point to prove. I think they do have the they do have the stronger roster, and they're coming off losing a decider in Queensland last year. So I think it's actually an awesome kind of redemption opportunity for them. They also do not want to fall down 0-1, knowing that game 2 is at Suncorp. So small edge to Queensland, of course, playing Townsville, but I don't think it's a big edge. It's certainly not one that the Blues can't overcome. And the other thing I have to mention as well, as I highlight there on the screen, Cam Munster and Harry Grant. There are injury clouds / match fitness question marks or risks, you have to say. I mean, we've heard little bits and pieces. Gagai not training because of illness. AJ Brimson has missed training sessions, and everyone's going to say Queensland, typical Ducks and Drakes and stuff. But the fact of the matter is, Harry Grant didn't play the first 5 or 6 weeks this season, played a few off the bench for Storm, hasn't played for over a month. Same story with Munster not having played for over a month. I'm not just talking about, how's the injuries? Munster's got this foot issue. Does it affect his mobility? But also match fitness. We know how fast Origin is. Are these guys going to be at their best when, all the chips are in the middle of the table and it's 15 to go and the game's there to be won? Because if Queensland's going to win, they're going to need some magic out of a guy like Harry Grant, out of Munster. Are these guys going to be at the top of their game? I'm certainly not going to write them off. I actually think Munster's the kind of guy who, as we saw last year, went on the all-time bender after the grand final and then still was basically best on ground and was man of the series. So I'm not going to write him off, but I do think you just got to throw that uncertainty in there. So overall, the way I see this one, I do definitely I lean New South Wales. I mentioned that the line is -4.5. And I think that's justified. Maybe I'd make the line like a -6. I'm not going to put a best bet on New South Wales. I think for me to make it a best bet, I would have to feel more strongly or feel that the line was a bit more wrong, feel that the line was at least 2 points off. So I'm telling you guys that now. Lean New South Wales. And I mean, for what it's worth, I had 3 leans on the previous round and one best bet or one team I sided with, and all the leans did get up. So, I mean, if you think I'm just not pulling the trigger because I don't really want New South Wales to win, then you can make your assessment. But I'll be cheering hard for Queensland because I'm not putting a best bet on this match. But that doesn't mean that I don't have a pick for you guys. Here is my pick. It's not a best bet, but it's going to be like the mixed matchups where it's going to be value, it's going to be a bit of fun, and jump on if you like it. Let me put it up on the screen now, guys, if I can. And please bear with me because I'm always doing this live. So anything can happen. Where are we? Let's see if we can get this bet up on the screen. Okay, hopefully you can see that all right. Let's remove the comment there for a second. Okay, so the bet is on Top Sport. It's called 3 from this crowd. I've picked 6 players, and we just need 3 tries scored combined from these 6 players. The 6 players are Addo Carr, Brian To'o, Xavier Coates. Let me chuck that up there again. Kyle Felt, Jerome Luai, and Cam Munster. So we need them to combine for 3 or more. Why? I've discussed my expectations that I think this is going to be one of the most open origins from a style of play match. So therefore, I think there's going to be scoring. The total is 42.5. That means 7.5 tries are expected, and I don't think that's wrong. I also wanted to come up with a play that I thought everybody can enjoy, like whether you're a Queenslander or New South Wales fan or you're a neutral. We've got 3 Queenslanders there. We've got 3 New South Welshmen there. And yes, you might be looking at that saying, well, it's only $2 odds, but I'm going to get to why it is value. I think we've talked a lot about this year about how everyone loves their anytime try scorer bets. And I know you guys are all going to be creating some epic same game multis. And in the past, we've given out some juicy Origin same game multis. And I know people always say how fun it is to have like a 25-1 same game multi. I don't know if it's just me. I don't always have fun with bets like that. When you pick something 25-1 or bigger, obviously you're picking several different legs, or you're picking a bunch of legs that are probably unlikely. And sometimes you're boxing yourself into a corner where you're like, all right, I want this player to score, but I don't want this team to score, or I need this, but I need that. Whereas I like the idea of this, where we don't need all 6 of those guys to score. We need maybe 3 of them, but maybe less, because we could also get a double, or even if, obviously if any of those wingers get a hat trick, we win. But what the beauty of this bet that I love as well, as I chuck it on the screen one more time, is we've got the left and right wingers for New South Wales. We've got the left and right wingers for Queensland. And we've got playmaking running 5/8s for both clubs or for both teams, which means you're always in it. No matter who's attacking, no matter where the ball is on the field, you've always got something to cheer for. In terms of the odds, I've also consulted Brent Douglas, who I've had on the pod before, NRL Stats Man. Join his group if you're interested in statistical side of things and lots of try scorer related data. And we've talked about, or he's helped me, consulted with me for picking the players and also about the value. You guys know I get a little bit mathematical. I'm not going to do that live, but if you want more information in the Facebook group, I'm happy to talk to you about how I did a 3,000 event Monte Carlo simulation to try and figure out the probability of this happening, and I'm definitely convinced that we've got a better than 50-50 shot. We're getting $2 odds on Top Sport, $200 max bet. It's kind of like the mixed matchups, which have been very profitable this year. And if you do need Top Sport, you can get an account and use the promo code TRIPOD. And I'm not saying that, I will tell you guys, if you appreciate the pod, it supports the pod. But I don't want you guys to join Top Sport for me. Join it if you think it's the right thing for you. I mean, I genuinely endorse them. I punt with them. I think it's an advantage the more bookies that you have available to you to punt, so you can always grab the best odds. And specifically, if you follow the pod tips, you've seen how successful the mixed matchup has been every week. So in terms of just finding value, it doesn't mean you have to back it blindly every week, but I think it's been value. And clearly, if you look at the numbers, they don't lie after 13 weeks. And we got incredible value this weekend. We won the mixed matchup by 46 points in the end. So that's why I like it. That bet, I think Brent told me that if you ran a bet like this the last 3 series, so the last 9 matches, and you looked at all 4 wingers and they're both 5/8, it's won 6 out of the last 9. So again, Brent endorses it. I endorse it. I think it's fun. I think especially if you kind of lean overs, then that's a great way to play this. Good bit of fun there, and plenty of kind of guys who know how to find the chalk there to get us a few tries. So we just need 3 or more from those 6 players. You can find that under Rugby League Markets on Top Sport. If you guys want a prediction, why not? I won't be cheering for this, but to give you how I see the game, I'll give you New South Wales 26-20. So that's the kind of game that I'm envisioning. But as I said, with the line at 4.5, I don't feel like I'm getting heap of line value, so I'm not going to go out there with the best bet on this. I'll be cheering hard for Queensland to win, because, just because I predict something doesn't mean I think for sure it's going to happen. Obviously, I think this game has the potential to be close enough to come down to the wire. Gun to the head, I think I've got, I can understand why New South Wales are the favourites, but anything can happen out there. But hopefully you guys don't mind the value of the bet I have shared, and I'll be keen to, talk more Origin throughout the next few days, and can't wait for the season or the Origin series to kick off. Now let's go back. That's my Origin kind of preview and how I see the game wrapped up. Now let's just have a few minutes, 5 or 10 minutes on round 13. So we went 1-1 on the best bets, which is quite disappointing, because as I say, there were 4 games and I actually had the lean to the winning side on all 4, but I only pulled the trigger on the first game here, which was Dragons 52 beating the Broncos 24. And I didn't even do great in this one because I had Dragons -7.5. Now, it blew out second half for sure, and we got the chocolates there. But I also had Broncos to score under 3.5 tries, and that was no good. Broncos scored 4 tries. They got one with 10 minutes to go. And it depends how you look at that bet. I mean, $1.85 when I tipped it on Wednesday. By the time that game kicked off Thursday night, the line was higher. I think the line was getting up to 9.5. The total was lower. There was a little bit of rain about. And that 3.5, the odds had significantly dropped. I was seeing bookies pricing that in the $1.50s, $1.60s. So you're done pretty well when you get like $1.85 on that. But having said that, Brisbane had 18 points or 3 tries in the first half. So obviously I was going, my big takeaway from that first half was you just got to be so sparing playing unders. And I know I've talked to other sharp punters in our group, and they've basically just sworn off betting unders. Like, if you lean under, you don't bet. If you like overs, you bet. Because in this new era, I mean, look at this match. There was 76 points. So even if you had the right idea, which was going against Brisbane, taking an under-related market cost us there by half a try. Now, in terms of this game, I always felt like the Dragons were going to cover. I know that they were down 18-12, but it just seemed to me they were hungry. They had more kind of key troops out there, and they're just the better, more complete squad that I felt confident was going to rip in for 80. They really needed this win, having only won 1 of the last 7. Brisbane, the point of the match that killed them, of course, if you guys saw this, was giving up that try to Dufty at the stroke of halftime, which was diabolical. I mean, even when Corey Norman put that kick through off a scrum with 5 seconds left in the half, the commentary team all sighed for what a terrible play it was. What Izako was doing, trying to let it run dead when the siren was about to go, I don't know. And those moments kill teams like, their mentality or their confidence level. So you could definitely pinpoint that if you were a Broncos bettor, that was the moment in the night where you knew things weren't going to go your way. Even if it had been 18 all at halftime, I still feel like Dragons would have probably been too strong second half. And in the end, that was the case. And the other story we have to talk about from this game is Matt Duffy. He absolutely brained the Broncos all night. 5 try assists, 2 tries himself. This is about 2 weeks after finding out that St. George have told him he can look elsewhere. He's not wanted there anymore, not in their future plans. Brisbane does not know for certain who their fullback of the future is. Why they didn't keep a guy like Reece Walsh is beyond me. So that was another big talking point. And Brisbane being overrated, which I did warn you guys on Wednesday, I think that showed itself. I talked about how they've won 3 games this year. They won a game against the Bulldogs, which doesn't impress anybody. They beat the Titans, who we know now aren't as good as people thought, and they got like an intercept length of the field try in that game. And they beat the Roosters. They also needed an intercept length of the field try in that one. And the Roosters had how many sin bins and penalties? Like, not that Brisbane didn't deserve it, but just that when Brisbane has won, things have gone their way in that match. When Brisbane has finally turned things around, when Kevy has got this club back where it needs to be, they're going to win a game where they face adversity. That is what Brisbane cannot do. First sign of adversity, they fold like origami. Let's move to an interesting one, which was West Tigers against the Panthers, and the West Tigers won 26-6. And I should mention the mixed matchup, of course, this week, which used the Dragons, and we needed the Dragons to outscore the Panthers. Now, the Dragons put 52 on the board, so we were pretty safe coming into this one. But I also chose that because I didn't think Penrith was going to be that strong this weekend. And in retrospect, why didn't I just take the +6.5 with the Tigers? And again, that's one where I was leaning that way. And I actually just felt Penrith could be in a max motivation spot, and they could just be so amped to kind of lift for the guys that are out, that you just don't want to go against a team that might actually come out and be ruthless. And the final score of West Tigers 26-6 doesn't tell the full story. This was 12-6 to the Tigers with like 15 to go before an 8-point try to Leilua, and then another like kind of late try that blew the game out. So it's not like Panthers had no hope in this game. To be fair, they were missing 7 Origin players and Leota as well. They hung tough for 65 minutes, but this West Tigers team was just a bit too good for them. And in the end, it does go to show when you miss that number of key players, you've got to look beyond the club emblem and beyond the jerseys. Like it matters which players are out there. West Tigers were only missing Offengawi, basically, I think. I don't think any other Origin players, I can't remember if they had like 1 or so other injuries, but pretty much a complete Tiger squad went out there, played at home at Leichhardt, and was just a bit too good for Penrith, who could never get control of the game and couldn't get out in front. And Brent's mentioned there are futures bets, and we did need the Tigers to win over 7.5 games this season. That's win number 5 for the Tigers after 13 rounds. So we're actually looking really good for that after they were pitiful the first 3 weeks of the season. Didn't see 5 wins coming in the next 10, but we've got there. Let's move to an interesting game that we weren't expecting. And again, I'm begrudging, or I'm a little bit annoyed at myself because I spoke about leaning to taking the points with the Titans. The line was 22.5 when I talked about the game on Wednesday. The line climbed all the way to 24.5. So you don't want to usually have a best bet and the line continues to grow. But regardless, obviously taking the points with the Titans would have been the right side. Hopefully some people did do that, and congrats to anybody who played the Titans. I just couldn't trust them. We saw how they folded against the Sharks, and we know how ruthless the Storm are with key players out. But you could once again say similar story to the Panthers in that when you got multiple key star players out, it does make a difference. Not necessarily every week, but why would you expect the team to just maintain the same level with some of your best players out? So that was part of it for the Storm. They were definitely off their game, I thought, especially in attack. But they got out to an early lead. I'm trying to remember exactly. I think Storm was up. The Titans scored the first try, but then the Storm got back out in front like 14-6, possibly even 20-6. So at that point, you probably thought that the Storm was going to run away with it. And in fact, the Titans fought back. And if you didn't see the ending of this game, the Titans could have very well won this one. They had basically a 3-on-1 with 10 minutes to go when Remus Smith was sent to the bin, and Brian Kelly's just got to have a pass in him. I always think everyone blames the centre for not passing to the winger, but Nico Hines did quite well, not committing till the last second and basically fooling Kelly into thinking he was running to the winger and then coming back and jamming him. And Brian Kelly muffs a certain try that would have given them the opportunity to tie it up with 10 minutes to go. And you say, well, you tie it up, it doesn't mean you would have won, but it would have been against 12 men. And then the final play of this game was absolutely crazy. Once again, Titans were down 6. They forced a line dropout, but there was only 35 seconds to go. Storm kicks it over halfway, and I can't even describe the play to you, but it went from the left to the right to the left. It must have touched, just about every set of hands in the team, and some multiple times. And they end up with a 2-on-1 down the left wing and throw the ball into touch. They dead set could have actually sent it to Golden Point with potentially one of the craziest tries you would have ever seen in your life. So if you can catch the replay or the highlights of that game, it'd be worth it just to flick to the end and see how close the Titans actually got to jagging this. Storm will be happy that they were gutsy and hung on. The other thing I wanted to say as well was I was bloody impressed by the game of Jaden Campbell. I'm pretty sure it's Jaden Campbell. Preston Campbell's son at fullback there, another 18-year-old kid who looks absolutely tiny, kind of like these Reece Walsh, Sam Walker kids. Incredible talent that is coming into the league. He was on debut against a Storm team. They're 20-point underdogs. He was superb. I mean, he had a couple of errors in his game, but he just looked dangerous and looked like menacing the defense and looked dynamic. And that's exciting for the Gold Coast. It really got me thinking, you almost got to keep this Campbell in the team now. And I don't know, does that mean you play Brimson at 5'8"? That's how much I thought of the performance of Campbell. I don't know what you guys thought, but that is exciting, the talent that's coming through there for the Gold Coast Titans, because they've been missing, again, execution lets them down, but they've been missing a bit of a spark in attack. Maybe he's the guy who can provide it. Good effort by the Titans overall. I know there's no moral victories in footy, but when you had, 3 Origin forwards out and your best player, Brimson, and you still nearly could have beat the Storm, even though it's a Storm without Origin players, that is impressive, because don't forget, that ended the Storm streak of 9 straight 13-plus wins. So good effort by the Titans, but they came up short. And finally, a team that did not put in good effort, the Knights lost 40-4. And my thoughts on this game, I talked to you guys on Wednesday. I was so close to betting Eels minus 11.5. So again, I'm actually annoyed when I lean something, but I don't give out a best bet. I hate missing a winner. You guys know this is one of the biggest challenges for me. It's trying to be super selective. So the best bets I do give you are really high confidence so that we can have a winning percentage like we've got this season, 65%. But I also want to provide winners. I don't want to hold them back. So I'm doing this new thing where I'm telling you if I lean to a team explicitly, even if I didn't play it as a best bet. That was the case with the Eels. But what can you say? The Knights at home on Old Boys Day. One thing I'll say is, lucky they didn't come with this effort last week, or I would absolutely copped it, because they, as we know, they won last week. They beat Manly. So how crazy is the NRL? The Knights were actually really strong last week and impressive and tough. And this week, they had a couple guys out, as we know, like some of the same guys that were out last week, like Ponga. But additionally, who else was out? Frizzell as well, it was a loss. Daniel Saifidi. Obviously, these are losses in the forward pack, whereas the Eels welcomed back Dylan Brown, and it made a difference to their attack for sure. But the Knights were just horrendous. I mean, it's hard to assess a team, honestly, when they're that bad. And it's also hard to say how good Parramatta was. But clearly Parramatta was polished. And let's not forget, Parramatta was off back-to-back losses. Parramatta had quite a bad loss 2 weeks in a row, losing significantly to Manly and Bunnies. I think they lost both those games by 20-plus points. And so Liam's saying there, everything pointed to Para. And I agree that Para was the side to be on this week. I wish I had been. I mean, part of it is the line just got a little bit high, and I kind of thought Knights at home, Old Boys Day, would at least make it a rough and tumble type affair, but they never even challenged the Eels, honestly. So they got smoked as a result. That'll do it for the Origin 1 preview. Please let me know what you reckon, how the game's going to go, or any bets you've got, any other angles you've got, and also my recap there of round 13. I'm not stoked to go 1-1, But when you go 1 win, 1 loss, your winner is $2 odds, so it kind of cancels out, and you win the mixed matchup at $2.40. That's a profitable week for us with our with our running tally to see how we're going overall with best bets and mixed matchups. We're now over $1,700 in profit if you're having 100 on every tip I do share out for you guys. So I'll be back Thursday. So everyone enjoy the Origin. I'll be interacting and putting up a bit of content and stuff before then. Enjoy the game, and I'll be back Thursday night, 5:45 p.m. on YouTube to preview round 14. Thanks for tuning in. As always, guys, please gamble responsibly. Lego.